You have made something from scratch and felt proud of it. Maybe it was a dish you had eaten at a restaurant and decided you could do yourself. Maybe someone showed you the recipe. Maybe you looked it up and it seemed simple enough. Fresh ingredients, a few hours, something impressive to put on the table when friends came over. You did not buy a kit. You did not cut corners. You used the good fish. You did it right. You trusted the process the same way everyone trusts it, because no one ever told you the process was not protecting you. Derek Santos made ceviche at home every few months. He had learned the recipe from his mother, who had learned it from hers. Fresh halibut, lime juice, red onion, cilantro, a little jalapeno. He bought the fish from a market he had been going to for years. He trusted the fish. He trusted the acid. He had read somewhere, years ago, that the lime juice cooks the fish, that the acid denatures the protein the same way heat does, that traditional ceviche was safe because of chemistry. This is one of the most widespread food safety myths in the world. It is not true, and on a Friday evening in Portland, Oregon, it nearly killed him. Derek was 34 years old. He worked as a graphic designer. He lived with his girlfriend in a rented house in Northeast Portland. He was not a professional chef, but he was a careful and enthusiastic home cook. He kept his kitchen clean. He bought quality ingredients. He had made this recipe a dozen times without incident. He had served it to his girlfriend, his friends, his co-workers at a potluck, and no one had ever gotten sick. The absence of illness is not the same as safety. It means you got lucky. Derek Santos had gotten lucky 11 times. On the 12th, the math changed. He made it on a Friday evening because two friends were coming over for dinner. He bought the halibut fresh that morning from the fish counter at the market. He pressed enough lime juice to fully submerge the fish. He let it sit for 3 hours in the refrigerator, the way his mother had taught him. When it was done, the fish was white and opaque all the way through. It looked cooked. It smelled clean. He plated it at 8 in the evening, and the four of them ate it together at the kitchen table. By 10:30, Derek felt the first cramp. By 11, he knew something was wrong in a way that was not ordinary food discomfort. By midnight, something inside his abdomen felt, in his words, like it was drilling through him. His girlfriend drove him to the emergency room. He arrived at Providence Portland Medical Center at 12:41 in the morning, doubled over, unable to find any position that relieved the pain. Here is what was happening inside Derek Santos's stomach. The halibut he bought that morning at the fish market had been fresh, properly refrigerated, and handled correctly at every point between the ocean and his kitchen. None of that is the issue. The issue is that the fish carried, coiled in the muscle tissue, larvae of a parasitic roundworm called Anisakis simplex. The larvae were alive. They had been alive when Derek filleted the fish. They were alive when he submerged it in lime juice. They were alive when he plated it. They were alive when he swallowed them. Anisakis simplex is one of the most common parasites found in marine fish worldwide. It belongs to the same class of organisms as roundworms and hookworms. Its life cycle begins in the ocean, where its eggs hatch into larvae that are consumed by small crustaceans. Those crustaceans are eaten by fish. The larvae migrate from the fish's digestive organs into the muscle tissue, where they insist, invisible to the naked eye and odorless, indistinguishable from the surrounding flesh. In the wild, infected fish are eaten by marine mammals, seals and whales and dolphins, inside whose stomachs the larvae mature into adult worms and complete their life cycle. Anisakis simplex larvae are not rare contaminants found in a small fraction of fish. Studies examining commercially sold fish in the United States have found Anisakis larvae in wild-caught Pacific salmon at rates above 50% in some species. Herring, mackerel, halibut, sea bass, squid, cod. The fish that appears most commonly in ceviche recipes is among the most heavily infected. The larvae are not visible to the naked eye. They cannot be seen, felt, or smelled. A fillet can look perfectly clean and harbor dozens of them. The fish counter cannot tell you. The fishmonger cannot tell you. There is no test performed on retail fish for Anisakis before it is sold. When a human being eats a fish containing Anisakis larvae, the human becomes a dead end for the parasite. It cannot mature inside a human stomach. It cannot complete its life cycle, but it tries anyway. It tries by doing the only thing it knows how to do. It attempts to burrow. Within hours of being swallowed, the larvae attempt to penetrate the lining of the human stomach wall. They are equipped to do exactly this. They have a boring tooth, a hardened tip at the anterior end of the body, specifically designed for breaching tissue. In the stomach of a marine mammal, this is the mechanism by which the larva advances toward adulthood. In the stomach of Derek Santos, it is what produced the sensation he described as something drilling through him from the inside. The larvae sometimes penetrate deeper. In intestinal Anisakis, the second and less common clinical form, the larvae pass through the stomach and attempt to embed in the wall of the small intestine. Intestinal Anisakis presents differently, with lower abdominal pain that may not develop for days after exposure, mimicking appendicitis, Crohn's disease, or a bowel obstruction. It is harder to diagnose endoscopically because the small intestine is more difficult to visualize. Some cases require surgery. The larvae cannot fully penetrate the human stomach wall in most cases. What they can do is attempt to, repeatedly, triggering an intense inflammatory response as the body's immune system recognizes the intrusion and attacks the site. The stomach wall swells. The surrounding tissue becomes inflamed. The pain is acute and localized, centered in the upper abdomen, and it does not resolve with antacids or position changes because it is not gastric acid causing it. It is a living organism attempting to exit through the lining of the stomach. The emergency physician who examined Derek at 12:41 ordered imaging and began a differential diagnosis that initially considered gallstones, appendicitis, and a perforated ulcer. Derek told the physician he had eaten ceviche for dinner. The physician paused. He asked how the fish had been prepared. Derek explained the lime juice method. The physician ordered an emergency upper endoscopy. An endoscope, a thin, flexible tube with a camera at the tip, was passed down Derek's throat and into his stomach at 2 in the morning. Derek was sedated but not fully unconscious, the standard for upper endoscopy. He would not remember the procedure clearly afterward. What the gastroenterologist saw on the screen was not what most endoscopies reveal. Visible on the internal surface of Derek's stomach wall, partially embedded in the mucosal lining, were 2 Anisakis larvae, each one approximately 2 centimeters long, thread-like, pale, moving. The gastroenterologist removed both larvae using forceps passed through the endoscope. The procedure took 11 minutes. The moment the second larva was extracted, the most acute phase of the pain began to subside. Derek was observed in the hospital until morning and discharged the following afternoon with anti-inflammatory medication and instructions to return if symptoms worsened. He spent the next 12 days recovering from the inflammatory response that the larvae had triggered in his stomach wall. The pain was not gone when he left the hospital. The body's immune response to the intrusion does not end when the intruder is removed. The tissue that had been penetrated remained inflamed. He could not eat solid food without discomfort for over a week. He lost 9 pounds. The inflammatory nodule that formed at the penetration site in his stomach wall, the body's attempt to wall off and destroy the area the larvae had attacked, took 3 months to fully resolve. For those 3 months, he experienced intermittent pain after eating. Anisakis granuloma, the technical name for this kind of residual inflammation, occasionally requires surgical removal if it does not resolve on its own. Derek's resolved. Not everyone's does. The endoscopy report described the 2 larvae in clinical language: viable nematode larvae, approximately 22 millimeters in length, embedded in the gastric mucosa of the antrum, successfully retrieved via forceps. Derek read the report 2 days after the procedure. The clinical language made what had happened inside his stomach sound orderly and containable. What it did not convey was what his gastroenterologist had quietly told him afterward, that in her 10 years of practice, she had performed endoscopic Anisakis removal fewer than 5 times. Not because the infection is rare, because it is almost never diagnosed. His 2 friends who had eaten the ceviche at dinner were fine. Of the 4 people at the table, only Derek had gotten sick, which is how Anisakis often works. The larvae are not distributed uniformly through the fish. One fillet might carry several, another might carry none. The person who happened to eat the portion of fish containing the larvae gets sick. The person who ate the portion beside it does not. There is no way to know in advance which piece is which. Here is what the lime juice does and does not do. Acid denatures protein. It changes the structure of the proteins in fish flesh, causing them to tighten and whiten and become opaque in a way that closely resembles what happens when fish is cooked with heat. When people say that lime juice cooks fish, they are describing something real at the level of protein structure. The flesh changes. It becomes firm. It looks done. It does not kill Anisakis larvae. Studies have tested Anisakis larvae in acid concentrations far stronger than any lime juice marinade and found the larvae survived exposure for hours. Stomach acid at a pH of 1.5 to 2 is far more acidic than lime juice, which has a pH of around 2 to 3. Stomach acid does not reliably kill Anisakis larvae either, which is precisely how the larvae reach the stomach wall alive. If your body's own gastric acid cannot kill Anisakis, lime juice at a higher pH and for a shorter exposure time cannot kill Anisakis. The myth has been tested. The myth does not hold. Multiple peer-reviewed studies have placed Anisakis larvae in lime juice and vinegar solutions for periods far exceeding typical ceviche marination times and found the larvae alive and motile afterward. The Peruvian ceviche tradition, the source of much of the lime as cooking mythology, uses fish marinated for as little as a few minutes in very high-acid citrus juice. This is called leche de tigre. The Peruvian food safety guidance for this preparation explicitly recommends using commercially frozen fish. The recommendation exists precisely because the acid does not work. The only reliable way to kill Anisakis larvae in fish is heat to an internal temperature of 63 degrees Celsius or freezing at -20 degrees Celsius for at least a week or -35 degrees Celsius for 15 hours. These temperatures kill the larvae completely. The FDA has regulations that require fish intended for raw consumption, sushi, sashimi, ceviche served in restaurants, to be frozen at parasite-killing temperatures before service. These regulations apply to commercial food service establishments. They do not apply to individuals buying fish at a market and preparing raw dishes at home. The FDA's regulations for parasite destruction in raw fish were developed with commercial food service in mind. A grocery store fish counter is not required to post any advisory informing customers who intend to eat the fish raw that it must be frozen first. A recipe website that instructs home cooks to make ceviche with fresh fish is not regulated by the FDA. The information gap between what the regulation requires of restaurants and what it communicates to home cooks is complete. Japan, where raw fish consumption is far more common, diagnoses thousands of confirmed Anisakis cases per year. American case counts are in the hundreds annually, which reflects not a lower rate of infection, but a lower rate of diagnosis. The true number of Americans who develop Anisakis each year is unknown because the majority of cases that resolve without endoscopy are never correctly identified. A significant number of what Americans classify as food poisoning after eating fish is almost certainly Anisakis. The larvae die. The immune response subsides over days. The episode ends. No one looks for what caused it. No one reports it. It does not exist in the statistics. Anisakis allergy is a separate and serious condition that develops in people repeatedly exposed to Anisakis proteins, either through eating infected fish or through occupational exposure, such as fish processing. People with Anisakis sensitization can experience anaphylaxis, a life-threatening allergic reaction, when they eat even thoroughly cooked fish from which the larvae have been killed, but whose proteins remain in the flesh. The allergy does not require a live larva. It requires only the proteins the larva left behind. In Spain, where raw and lightly prepared fish is common, Anisakis allergy is one of the leading causes of food-induced anaphylaxis. If you make ceviche at home or eat raw fish in any form, the lime juice is not protecting you from parasites. It never has been. The only protection is temperature. Buy sushi-grade fish that has been commercially frozen to FDA parasite kill specifications, or ask your fish market explicitly whether the fish has been frozen for parasite destruction, or cook the fish to an internal temperature of 63 degrees Celsius. The acid will change what the fish looks like. It will not change what might be living in it. Derek Santos does not make ceviche at home anymore. He still eats it occasionally in restaurants that he knows source sushi-grade fish. The memory of the pain is specific enough that he is not tempted to take shortcuts. His mother, when he told her what had happened, was quiet for a moment. Then she said she had been making ceviche that way her entire life. He told her she had been lucky. This is system failure. I will see you in the next waiting room.